People deluded, I'm back again. Good morning, and I hope you're all doing well and safe. Now, thankfully for us Arsenal fans, this week will be the end of this season and what's been a terrible season. And whether you're Arsenal fan or whatever, it's a thing where it's transfer window now. There's gonna be a lot of speculation. Now, the man to that's my right. It'll probably be to your left, David Luiz. We know he's gone. Willian, there's a lot of speculation. I know in a live stream, and I cut up a live part of the live stream and made a video or cut up that section of the live stream to offer my opinions on Willian leaving. So I'm not going to go over the same things. Please go and watch that if you want my extended Willian thoughts. Now, a blind man could see it hasn't worked out, innit? When you sign people at the end of their careers like Willian, with what was projected he was seeking at his age, it has to work, or people start using money and things as his primary focus. Do I think Willian is focused on being a better footballer? Of course. Do I think Willian is committed to the cause? Of course. Do I think Willian has integrity? I do. I and a lot of us, we all say these players don't care because they're on money, and I believe a lot of that is true when you see the culture of our football club. But I don't think players sit there and don't want to play, especially when you're Willian. You're 32. You became a footballer. It's a dream job. We've got to remember it's a dream and it's not going to last long. So you have to play well. But simply put, it's got to work, because again, people say Premier League proven experience. These things are only relevant if you're actually good. He hasn't. He scored one goal. Him and Alisson, the goalkeeper, have the same amount of goals from open play in the Premier League. We haven't got no goals, no assists, no general influence. He hasn't become at minimum a competent, frustrating rotation option. He's just been past it. He's found a way to become even worse. I actually feel you've got to place the majority of that on the individual, but some of that has to be to Arteta as well, because when you consider Pepe's ups and downs this season, Martinelli's not really getting minutes. The first season, again, Aubameyang has to take responsibility, but Aubameyang not excelling. Generally, this team has struggled for goals, and individually, they all need to take responsibility, but collectively, that has to be on the manager. Why is nobody performing in the final third? So it is what it is. Willian needs to go. Do I think Willian's going to go? Of course not, but just away from Willian temporarily, people, please make sure you hit the like button. Let's start with Leno first and foremost, folks, because again, he's another one linked with a move away. And a lot of these players got the last 2 years left. They're allowed to want moves away. They're allowed to consider other possibilities. They're allowed to do all of that. For me, it doesn't reflect well as a fan, because it feels like the manager and the club are putting faith in these players who don't really realize how lucky they are, because some of them are punching to be at the club, and they've always seems to have bare options. So again, one has to wonder, what is their commitment, especially to what Arteta is trying to do, when some of them are angling for moves. And I'm not saying this or not, but when you look at the whole squad, question marks over Lacazette, who I think is fully committed. Question marks over the two behind me. Question marks over Leno, Xhaka, Bellerin. Suddenly, this is the bulk of your squad. When you consider the people we got rid in January, how can you have consistency if these players know that they're angling for moves and whatnot? But in relation to Leno, he's come out hitting hard people and kind of not dispelling rumours, but kind of adding to them. He's offered an interview in Germany, and this is not all of what he said. There are some extended thoughts. He spoke more about the German national team, but I've only copied and pasted the relevant parts, or what I deem is relevant. When asked the Arsenal chase in the past, he said, why is it so difficult for Arsenal? The Premier League is tough. The smaller teams really hurt you, which is why we can't allow ourselves periods of weakness like last autumn. Otherwise, you run after the music. We didn't get the curve after that, but we last won against Chelsea. We beat Tottenham and Manchester United. The quality is there, but we couldn't always call it up. So quality doesn't mean anything if there's not consistency. We know there's not consistency. We know, I don't want to go as far as to say games against the top six are not a problem, because we're not all the way there yet. But I'm pretty sure Arsenal fans are more confident in the isolated incidences against Man United, Spurs, Chelsea, even City, than the 38-game calendar, including these teams. We can't. Let's not act like we're elite against the smaller clubs, but Arteta and the boys, we seem to thrive in being the underdogs, in being quite reactive as a team, in being quite pragmatic as a team. In short, like I said, how many times are you playing the top teams with respect in the Premier League? Because we're ninth. So again, it's not just 4, 5, 6 teams max. Again, you're not playing them every week. It's about what you do against the quote unquote smaller teams, how you break down low blocks, your DNA of playing. Again, I have no problem about the team and how we play in the top games, but that's a couple of incidences. And for me, beating Chelsea, Spurs, United, I'm not going to say it doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't mean anything if they all finish above you and you don't get Europe and it's been worse than last year. Are you really going to console yourself when you go off on holiday to at the end of the season and you consider where you've gone and say at least we won a couple London derbies and we beat United away from home? They feel good for a day, they feel good for a couple of hours, but again, issues. Do you regret moving to London in 2018? No, definitely not. I've never regretted the move, not even at the beginning when I sat on the bench for the first few games. I wanted to gain experience abroad, also as a person, and the Premier League is the coolest league. I followed this league. He said, what makes the Premier League so attractive? This back and forth, the physicality, the playing with an open visor. Again, this is copied and paste, people, and Google Translate. So if some of it don't make sense, it's down to that. That just makes you want to go. There's more going on here than in the Bundesliga. There's too much midfield skirmishing and probing there. I'm always happy when the fans are back. They set the pace in England and push the teams. Well, you don't seem to let Arsenal fans push you any of you, really. You all look nervous. When asked about a move potentially back to the Bundesliga, you have a contract until 2023. Will you fulfill it? I don't want to flee here, so he doesn't want to leave a coward. I feel good and I want to be successful again with Arsenal. Again, a lot of this could be lip service. He's got 2 years left on this deal. I think he wants to stay. I think he wants to go. All options on the table. Let's remove our love for Arsenal. Let's be honest. A man is allowed. He is allowed to do that. He should consider everything. Now, for me personally, if we was a forward-thinking club and we could, and we had faith that you lot had faith that we could address the areas we need to, right back, centre mid, and whatnot, I would look to replace Leno. I've been saying it. I think Leno's overrated. I think he's a good shot stopper. I think he is being unnecessarily scapegoated, but I just think he's suspect. I think a better defense you can move with Leno, but I just think you need to upgrade. Now, one would say, and which I agree with, Arsenal haven't fixed the holes in the roof. So how are we now talking about flooring and things like that? Fix one problem at a time before you create more or talk about more. For me, again, 29, way too error prone. I just don't think he cuts the mustard. But anyways, people, he said, I don't want to flee here. Sorry. I feel good. I want to be successful again with Arsenal. Arsenal are a big club, which is extremely underestimated in Germany. There are so many Arsenal fans all over the world. I still have a 2-year contract and hope to play in the Champions League again with Arsenal. It's also clear that at some point in my career, I want to do something different, which you're 29, it's got to come soon. So far, I've played for 2 clubs. Maybe I'll get the urge to play in another league again, maybe in the South, but there is a time. I'm still getting to the top goalkeeping age, but my focus is on Arsenal FC. So for me, I'd probably want to move him on because, again, he's allowed to have that. But, again, not every you're allowed to have moves, but he keeps thinking about these moves. I'd rather him just go and do it now. But I want Leno to stay because I don't have faith in us buying another keeper. But this needs to be addressed. And when you've got 2 years left, I'm pretty sure over the course of this season, there must have been times he wants to go, he wants to stay. He's allowed to think that. But too volatile. Too volatile as a goalkeeper. There's too many individuals at Arsenal that keep angling for moves away and then they're staying. Should I stay? Should I go? Please just keep it moving. So he hasn't, he said his focus is on Arsenal. Now, a bit of that, might be sensible because, again, whether he wants to leave or not, there's reasons to believe it or not believe it. It's not going to help Arsenal. It's not going to help Leno. It's not going to help his advisors saying I blatantly want to leave. It affects everybody's negotiating positions indirectly. And one thing I like about Leno, one thing I give him, he seems quite respectful. So maybe a bit of that is for Arteta. I'm not really saying indirectly. He's kind of said everything but said nothing at the same time. In your career, you stood together with Julian Brandt 175 times. Arsenal should be on him, and things are not going well for him in Dortmund at the moment. Are you in contact with him? I read the rumours with Arsenal and wrote them a few messages right away, but I don't know what is really there. In any case, I would be happy if he was to come. Julie is a good friend. We had a very good time in Leverkusen, and privately, we're often out for 1 or 2 beers. Maybe we can experience that again in the future. He's also invited to my wedding, which unfortunately couldn't take place this year. We'll make up for that next year. He said Aubameyang's not invited to the wedding. I don't know if that was a joke. He said side notes, as you can see here. He also said he's good friends with Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. He said he's had a good season in the Premier League in Europa, and I think I'm going to leave you lot to draw your occasions because I don't think he's been bad. I think if you marked him out of 10, I think he's been 5, 6 out of 10 by his own standards. So, and collectively, you can't say you've had a good season because you're part of the defensive unit. We've all been terrible. We sit 9th. We didn't get to the final. No one's had a good season. But apparently ter Stegen's injured, so it boosts his chances of being number 2 for Germany. But moving on from that, though, and speaking on Willian now, people, as we know, as I said, it's been a tough season for Willian. I'm not going to go over the same. I don't think he's going to leave Arsenal Football Club purely because he said he wants to play in the World Cup. Now, you look at, you look at Dani Alves. With all due respect to the top division in Brazil, he's 38 and it's taken 2 years, but he's now been called back up to the national team. So for me, I look at it is, do you necessarily have to be playing in the top, quote unquote, top European leagues to get a call up for Brazil? Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't know if anyone in the Brazil national team's been called up in the MLS, which I think should be Willian's most likely destination, such as our desperation to get rid of him. He said he spoke about his difficult season and wanting to play in the World Cup next year. So if you want to play in the World Cup next year, your best thing, which a lot of players do, is stay put at your current employers or move to a team where you're definitely guaranteed. So do I think a team, we've already spoken about it, I don't think a European team is going to give him his wages and give Arsenal a transfer fee. Likewise, if he goes MLS, I don't know if they're going to pay they're going to have to forego a transfer fee. He can get a signing in bonus. He can get wages. I don't know if any departure from Arsenal involves Arsenal making up some of his wages, which some would say, 10% is better than paying 100% of his whole thing. But as you lot know, people, he was praised by Edu and Arteta about being experienced, Premier League proven, hitting the ground running. None of these things have happened. He's ultimately been a flop, even worse of a flop than many people, including myself, could have imagined, people. But as you lot know, he has failed for regality in his first season at Arsenal. He's reported difficulties in adapting and spoke about his relationship with Arsenal. Apologies, people. I should zoom in for you lot because that's very terrible. I know you lot can't see that. We're not going to read that. We all know his first season's terrible. And he said, this is why I don't think he's going to leave. My goal is to return to, and again, before I carry on, he could leave to go and play somewhere where you're happy and boost your chances of the World Cup. But he said, my goal is to return to the Brazilian national team and play the next World Cup. I know that moment is not appropriate for my return because of the difficult season I've had, but I want to resume good football, regularity, be productive with goals and assists as it was at Chelsea and represent Brazil. You weren't the most prolific at Chelsea, but you was much better than you was. And I know a lot of times you've spoken about how training here is different, how it's more tactical, and how it was more something else at Chelsea. Again, I don't think there's any excuses. You're just not hitting the ground running, my brother. Like, you're just not good enough right now. It's just not levels, Everything was set up. The manager's got faith in you. You've just not been good enough for whatever reason. You look a yard slower. You're not good in the final third. You're not the best of players on the best of days, and your confidence has been shot. I have felt sorry for him in that regards because there was a time he needed saving for himself. And, obviously some managers like to play them. When you just play a man or a footballer through their form regardless, I think it gets to a point where you have to now try taking them out of the lineup or the firing line and trying a different approach. And I think William he deserved that at least, and that showed Arteta's inexperience. Also, Willian has been an expensive transfer. He's failed to deliver, and I'm not saying Reece Nelson's going to be a world beater, but Reece Nelson, Martinelli, Pepe, these guys have been cost minutes. Indirectly, you could say strikers as well, because again, when there's one winger on the pitch or forward on the pitch, that affects somebody else's spot in the team. You can have ambitions, he wants one last hoorah going to playing for Brazil, going into the next World Cup. It's not going to happen here, It's not going to happen here. We absolutely effed up. We gave him a 3-year deal, which is an issue, people. He said each coach has his own way of working and each club has a philosophy of play. I was used to a more physical, intense training session. I don't see the physicality or intensity on the football field, so it's irrelevant. At Arsenal with Arteta, we work much more on tactical. And I do think some of the tactics have stifled him, as I've said in previous videos. And he said aiming and the opponent. We must respect and I must adapt to this new model. In addition to adapting to the new team, well, we know he's had injuries, but that's all dead. He said, I had a good start and I've never had many injuries. I also showed regularity, but I was out on 3 occasions this year. So again, maybe for Arsenal, Willian's never had proper injuries. Partey's the same. Lo and behold, there's issues in that regards. I'm not too sure you had a good start against Fulham. You did what you had to do, and then you kind of tailed off after that. You've played well. You got an assist against Wolves. You scored a cracker of a goal against West Brom. You turned up on the final day of the season. Benfica second half, you was all right, but we didn't pay 200k 3-year deal for that. Again, this is it's the club's failure because they've given him everything, and I don't think Willian is sitting there going, I'm on a 3-year deal, I'm fine. I don't think Willian is like that, but I just feel you need an exit plan. You know, we can't get out of this with Willian. You know, we're arguably going to look even more stupider in that regard. And yeah, he's had injuries. So again, certain men have never been injured at teams. Why is there injuries now? Is it the training methods? Is it the rehab when we're playing games? Is it how we're managing their workloads in the week? Is it purely coincidental? Is it something just to do with Willian? We'll never know as football fans. But again, man's barely been injured at Chelsea, comes here, gets injured. And when I see him, when I see Partey, when I see how we play around with Smith Rowe, Tierney and Saka's fitness, Granit Xhaka and David Luiz have been pissed about, you know, Partey the same. You know, we've really messed around with people's fitness levels, numerous players. And I think that's for Arteta and the coaching staff. They've shown their inexperience. Sometimes just don't play someone. Every player is going to want to play, and you lose battles when you could be trying to win wars. We lost David Luiz in the build-up to Villarreal. Would he have made the difference against Villarreal? Maybe, maybe not. But I back him to show some damn character. Instead, he played him against Newcastle, where he could have just trained in the week. Yeah, he would have been a yard or two off it. But the same logic is why David Luiz turned up in an FA Cup final for us. But Arteta's got his coaching badges. We're just here speaking and talking on YouTube. But yeah, man, you know, he said he wants to, you know, he said, this is why I couldn't be the Willian of Chelsea. I hope to return to my high level, and a bad season does not define my qualities and my potential. I still want to win titles. Very bullish talk. I rate that. It doesn't. But could you please do it somewhere else? Example for young players, you know, we all know, he said, Martinelli is a boy again, Google Translate. Martinelli is a boy in his, but we always talk. A few weeks ago, I was talking fouls, and he asked me, how do you do it like that? Do you take fouls like corners? And I said that he needed to start taking fouls because he's a striker and he needs goals. And it was really cool because no one had ever asked me about that. Cool, yeah, you know, I don't mind that. You, David Luiz, Marie, you know, of a different ilk, you experienced players should be able to answer questions, should be able to teach. And Martinelli, work on your free kicks. I wouldn't say follow Willian because he's taking a hot minute to hit the target and whatnot. And yeah, he's spoken about other stuff, but it's not really relevant, people. And this is where I'm saying, in my opinion, I don't think he's leaving because, for one, I'm not saying you can't go to other leagues and be called up, but I don't see a European team spending big money on him. And when I say big money, I just mean a transfer fee, his wages, and all the other costs they have to incur. Arsenal could let him go for free, and I'd love him to go to MLS. But are you going to get called up for the Brazilian team, no matter how much you play, how well you play? In MLS. So you might just say, do you know what? I'm staying at Arsenal. I'm going to have a big season next year. Like he said, this ain't the Willian that they've known. He does seem someone that's a bit, you know, intense in his desire to show the real Willian. You've got Arteta, who positively reinforces all the BS he does and says he trains well. Not that training correlates to 3 points on a match day, but you get the point, people. So for that reason, for his World Cup reason, I don't think he's leaving. You know, the only chance I see is him going to a European team. But as I said, the finances involved, or better yet, the consequence of the finances involved in the initial Willian deal when we signed him has crippled us, people. And it is what it is. For me, I would love Willian to go. He's one of them. I just think we need to go. It's not like he's 24, 23, where he signed from a new league and you can give him that bly of the next season. It's not like he's a homegrown player just come out of the academy. The man is 32. You know, he might, you know, I wanna be wrong. I want to sit here next season and say, yo, Willian was turned up for Arsenal, but he's hardly going to turn into Cristiano Ronaldo. At best, you're just hoping he's frustrating in the final third and able to actually beat a man rather than this year. He looks off the pace. Like, for me, you just have to cut your losses. Sometimes guys are not on it. Like, Willian's experience is irrelevant. We can't keep looking at experience and things. Real experience and Premier League proving it only matters if you're good. He's not. It doesn't matter that he's able to play on the left, right, or in the 10 because he's not productive. It doesn't matter that he's 32 because he doesn't, you know, if Saka didn't have a baby face, Smith Rowe the same, would you know them man they are younger than him? No, because he doesn't set example. He hides behind them. I'm not trying to make this an attack at Willian, but he just sums up what's wrong with Arsenal. Overpaying mediocre players being awarded for mediocrism, if that's even a word. And that's why we're in this nonsense. And that's an L for Arteta. You know, you wanted him, you signed this deal, get us out of that. That's all I've got to say. I think Willian's got a goal, man. Like, personally, you know, I can't see a world where he turns it over. Hopefully he does, but if he stays, you know, that's all you've got. But if a club's serious, if a club really wants to be ruthless, then this is what needs to be ruthless. You ain't cut up the task, keep it moving, people. We said it's been a hard season and all these things. Some of that you got to take the blame on. There's got to be a reason for that. Was you laxed in your approach? Because again, We never had no expectations of Willian. Somehow he's been able to disappoint us, and it's another free transfer, which is expensive. And to go with Mkhitaryan, to go with, you know, the loans of Ceballos ×2, Denis Suarez, you know, it's not just the big money signings, which we can name them all, that haven't worked out. It's the practices around the free transfers and the loans and whatnot, people. And like I said, signing, if you're going to make these signings, cool. Bad signings happen in it. I can't use that as a reason not to sign someone just because I didn't want to believe in them. But you need an exit plan. Arsenal don't. You've given man a 3-year deal. Why would Chelsea were fighting tooth and nail and saying no? But you lot did, and I want to know the specific reasons. Why did you? Did you think clarity over his future was going to mean he's going to excel? You know, personally, I think you give man a 2-year deal with the option of 1, and then he has an incentive. Or personally, I think you don't sign a man full stop. You know, David Luiz has been a better signing than I and a lot of people imagined. He did have his shortcomings. Willian isn't good enough, and at that same point, this tells you all the problems with us. You know, mediocre players are not going to take you to the top. You know, just because a man signed at Chelsea and he's won Premier League doesn't mean he's going to be levels. But, you know, you get what you pay for. Sometimes you buy cheap, you buy twice over. You know, me personally, sell him, let him go for free, better yet, because I don't see you selling him. Give them minutes to young players who'll sign another man that's of the same ilk as him, but younger, and then you keep it moving, people. But in relation to Leno and Willian, that's all I've got to say. So I'm going to get out of it. On that note, people, DG, I'm out. God bless. Please take care of yourself. Please make sure you're hitting that like button, people. Please make sure you're aware of the my preview for the Palace game, the watch along, the reaction, DG podcast on Spotify, all of the content. But on that note, I'm going to leave you with a message from the sponsors and get out of it. Information is in my